We are now going to be welcomed by our panel, including BOSA leader Mmusi Maimane, Karabo Khakhau from the DA, Dereleen James joins us from ActionSA. We've also got political analyst Sandile Swana and Nemala Gopal, who is a UKZN criminologist, joining us via telephone. A very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for your time at this hour as we obviously edge closer to the president addressing the nation, given the severity of the implications that had been highlighted by Lieutenant General Sandile, I'm going to start with you. Let's paint the picture of really what this means politically. If we're just looking at the allegations, the timing of all of this, is it part of a broader struggle within the ANC, within our state security at large? How would you weigh in there?
Good afternoon, Lizel, and good afternoon to your viewers.
Thanks.
I think that the issue of timing does not need too much of our focus. Because we know that what has been revealed by General Mkhwanazi is consistent with a pattern that we've observed over at least the past 25 years, starting in the days of Jackie Silebi. So a lot of us have been coming across one case or the other. Even the parliamentary committees have observed irregularities over a long period of time. So I think we must deal with these allegations on the basis of what they are and process them through the existing governance structure in South Africa to get to the bottom of this and eradicate the mafia state that is growing in South Africa right now.
Well, to your point about patterns of allegations and trends of whistleblowers being silenced, I'm also going to weigh in, we'll get reactions from political parties. Mr. Maimane, I can see you're there, so I'm just going to get your reaction just in view of the allegations that have since surfaced and the turmoil that it's caused not only within the police ministry, but also for the country at large. How would you weigh in as BOSA?
Good afternoon and good afternoon, fellow South Africans. First and foremost, these tell us that state capture has not stopped. The allegations tell us that, in fact, that the state has been privatized where criminals are able to run the politicians who inevitably do their job. And more seriously, what South Africans are not waiting for tonight is another prolonged process of an inquiry. What South Africans want is deliberate and direct action. The fault with State Capture 1.0, which was the investigation by Judge Zondo, meant that R1 billion later and a number of years later, the political principles are still walking around freely. What South Africans desperately want is those who are responsible for the work of making decisions about their lives daily be held accountable. So in the shoes of President Ramaphosa, one, a special investigation unit with the power to prosecute must be put on the table. Two, we must ensure that those who are implicated are suspended within 30 days because we'll establish the veracity of the allegations by General Mkhwanazi, so that ultimately what happens is those who are directly implicated, whether the Minister of Police, the generals, the judges, aren't in the next 30 days influencing the investigation that must go into this issue. That is the purpose of a suspension. And then ultimately, as South Africans, we expect a proper clean out, or if failure to do that, then I would argue that the leadership of this country is not fit to protect the people of this country, and therefore action must be taken against them. So in this instance, I believe if people are believed to be innocent until proven guilty, I certainly believe that General Mkhwanazi is telling the truth until it's been proven otherwise.
All right. Thank you for weighing in there. I mean, obviously also looking at the precedents that this is going to set. Dereleen, I'm going to ask you two on the back of what, Mr. Swana and Mr. Maimane have echoed. Talk to us about your reaction as ActionSA, but even the manner in which, the matter was came to the fore. Talk to us about, the press briefing that was held, the expose as well on that front. Did it matter to you in terms of how these allegations came to the surface? Concerns on the front of whistleblowers at large, their protection, their silences as well in South Africa to date?
Good afternoon to the viewers and everyone on the panel. I think, yes, it did matter. It did matter how these allegations came to the fore. I think it was exemplary. I think it was commendable. I think what General Mkhwanazi's stance did, it sort of empowered fellow men and women in blue to also speak out. Never before have we seen an actual SAPS member speaking out against fellow SAPS members, especially generals. I think what has happened and his allegations, South Africans has known this for the longest time ever. It is not news to us. It is not news for us that there are levels of corruption amongst these top wigs in our country. For me, it is just a shame to hear that, that they are embroiled with drug cartels. And I couldn't help but wonder why we never get reports from the police on drug syndicates that's been taken down. And when General Mkhwanazi mentioned that, it actually made perfect sense. I think for us tonight, we're not expecting much from the president. Mr. Sandile spoke about a process through government structures. We have seen how many processes being taken through government structures, and we've never seen any outcome that was satisfactory to South Africans. I am saying it is time that we lobby the ordinary citizen out there to realize their power according to our constitution in terms of governing, in terms of letting their voices be heard. This is just going to be another drawn out process with absolutely no outcome. It is Judgment Day for President Cyril Ramaphosa, but we know already what to expect.
Well, Dereleen, on the back of that, I mean, there have been questions about whether South Africa has an appetite for another commission, given what's already come to the fore on various other fronts. And so, Karabo, if you can hear me, as a DA, let's get your reaction, obviously, in this matter, leading up to the fact that obviously there was a case opened against the Minister of Police. Talk to us about that as well, but also just how the minister's denied these allegations. He's come out to say that it's been baseless, requested special leave. Allegedly, that's also on the cards. It's being considered at this point. And so we obviously are waiting to hear what the president has to say. But there have been questions about whether, this response is a little too late, given the trust deficit and given the deep-rooted issues as well. Let's get your thoughts.
Good afternoon, Liesl. Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. Look, the bottom line is that the people of the Republic of South Africa have made it continuously clear to President Ramaphosa that they do not have faith in compromised ministers, one, and two, because they don't have faith in compromised ministers, they do not want them in his cabinet representing them. And that representation goes beyond Senzo Mchunu. It includes Nobuhle Nkamane, it includes Thembi Smelane. These are people who the people of the Republic of South Africa have continuously said they can't even trust that the decisions that they take on their behalf are in their best interest, let alone the muscle or power to use their money in forms of budgets to roll out service delivery. So obviously the expectation for us as the Democratic Alliance is consistent with the expectation of the people of this country who want to see a reformed government. That means a replacement of these people that have been mentioned altogether. But that doesn't just go there. The replacement doesn't mean a reshuffle to another department. The replacement means chucking them out of cabinet altogether, sacking them. Because we know that the president has already shown us as a country that he does have an appetite actually to fire people, as we've seen him do with Andrew Whitfield. If you're going to fire a deputy minister for going on an international trip in his personal capacity and not in his capacity as a deputy minister, surely the people of the Republic of South Africa expect you to fire a minister who's compromising not only the security of this country, but also compromising the faith of the people of this republic in government resolving crime. Crime as heavy as drugs, crime as heavy as murder, crime as heavy as GBV, and the whole lot. So they want to be able to see you act in that faith. But also the people also want you to see you act against a minister who has shown that they do not have the capacity to shield young people of this country who depend on the Department of Higher Education to function optimally, whether it is because of CETAs or whether it's because of NSFAS or whether it's because of the general relationship between young people and the institutions of higher learning that is responsible for the building of this country's future. So these are things that we're looking forward to see from the minister, from the president.
As all of you alluded to, there are more questions and answers. And so we've heard some opening remarks. We welcome you to also interact with us. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to dial in 011-714-0680 or 0681 or 0682. You can keep that conversation going. Some reactions from the opposition, the political parties. We've also heard from Sandile Swana, but I also want to bring in Nemala Gopal, who's a UKZN criminologist. Nemala, if you can hear me, a very good afternoon to you. On the back of what's been echoed, the build-up to the address by the president later today, we're just looking at the criminal justice system at large, the kind of risks that whistleblowers also face, by speaking out in relation to Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhonazi, other whistleblowers that have obviously lost their lives in pursuit of truth and justice. Talk to us a little bit more about that, but also what is reflected internally within SAPS, the culture, that the manner in which this all came about obviously transpired in the way that it did. Is there still trust and integrity for respect for the rule of law and upholding it at large?
Good afternoon, Lizelle. Good afternoon to panelists and your viewers as well. So I want to start by saying, of course, the manner in which it has been exposed, and I heard one of the fellow panelists mention this should not be the focus. The focus should be on the content of what has actually been exposed. Having said that, I think in terms of the morale, if we think about the morale of SAPS, I also believe that we shouldn't overemphasize that, because I think as a country, as citizens of the country and as employees in the various sectors, I think there's a great deal of resilience amongst our people, the people of South Africa. Generally, we have a great deal of resilience. So let us not distract from the real issue as well and focus too much on that also. I think, what this probably does do, though, is I think members of SAPS themselves are waiting to see what's going to happen. Are the top brass actually going to be held accountable? Because if they are held accountable, then the domino effect of that is probably going to be the fact that they themselves will be held accountable. So I think it's a top-down, bottom-up effect that we're actually going to see. And there might not be as much anxiety as we think there might be. And unfortunately, we're not testing that at this point in time. And I hope that at some point, whether it's through, media, and I think you guys are doing a wonderful job at the moment, because the country is abuzz, largely because of news channels, etc., that has actually brought this to the fore. So I think it would be wonderful if we could test that in terms of how South Africans are feeling. In terms of the criminal justice system across the spectrum, I think this is a really critical time for the justice system in as far as our democracy is concerned, because in many ways we are still a fledgling democracy, and these are the times when our criminal justice system will actually be tested comprehensively, and how the criminal justice system responds to this is going to be really important for us as a democracy. So I think critical times, important times, especially with regards to the democratic country and the principles that we actually stand for.
All right. Thank you so much for weighing there, because Sandile, I want to bring you back into the conversation. There's obviously consequences for the administration at large, but also the ANC itself. And I wonder, even if we're looking at whistleblowers, the necessary legislation that's also required at this point, the precedents and the message it also sends out to people in other institutions, how would you weigh in on that?
I mean, there is a very long-standing problem of how this government and the ruling elites have dealt with whistleblowers. You'll remember from an ANC perspective that Cindy Somagaqa was murdered for whistleblowing, if you like, in the Umzumkulu area by leaders of the African National Congress in South Africa. So, and there are many more. And there are many, many more. Ngombane in the Free State, Jimmy Mushala in Mpumalanga. There are many men who have been murdered within the context of the structures of the ANC for whistleblowing. There are many also who have not been protected adequately. Williams is another one, and so on and so forth. So the laws and the actual infrastructure for protecting whistleblowers is a problem at the moment, and it will always be a problem when you've got what you might call a rotten police service. If the people who must protect you are rotten, people who even at times members of the state who even physically attack the Auditor General and all such people. So it's a problem, the area of whistleblowers. That is where I would agree with those who say the community must be mobilized, but the community must not be mobilized in a haphazard fashion. It must be mobilized, for instance, to say these are the specific proposals on protecting whistleblowers that we want Ramaphosa to implement. We must not turn this thing into a kangaroo court, because if we have had 25 years of mafia behavior from the ruling elite and specifically the ANC, you cannot be haphazard in how we are trying to kill this criminality at the highest levels. Thank you.
Okay, so obviously to all our panelists, you know that the nation is watching and this is the public broadcaster. So we've asked him to also call in and message, with some of the questions. I believe Bulelo from the Eastern Cape province is on the line. Bulelo, if you can hear us, good afternoon. You are speaking to Liesl and obviously all our panelists here in discussion as we anticipate the address by the president. Let's hear your thoughts. Limited about 30 seconds or so, and then pose, perhaps you can direct who you'd like to answer as well.
Yes, madam. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Welcome. Let's hear your question.
Yes, no. I was saying that I'm having some document which can back up what General Mkwanazi has said with me.
Okay, Bulelo, perhaps you could just get to the crux of your matter. What's the point you're trying to make? We are limited for time.
Okay.
What is the question you'd like? Who are you asking it to? We're struggling to hear you. We're limited with time as well.
Yes, no, I just want to back up what General Mkwanazi has said. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I mean, you and the rest of the country waiting with bated breath really to look at how truth will be, confronted and how this matter is going to be dealt with, what standard is also going to be set. Mr. Maimane, let me bring you, back into the conversation because I actually also just want to look at the recourse and the options available. Does this open up the minister to possible charges that, he could face, just in relation to the Prevention and Combating of Corruption Activities Act, but also, should this matter then be referred to the Public Protector, to the NPA at large? Let's look at what other avenues need to be explored in terms of transparency and accountability from your vantage point.
Well, at first instance is that under PRECA, if the minister is seen to have, if you like, in this instance, defeated the means defeated the ends of justice, then ultimately he should be held accountable for that. Secondly, if there's been any, in this particular instance, as I chair the Appropriations Committee, have already looking at some of the financial transactions that were appropriated for the purposes of protecting the citizens. That money was sent to the department, and if those programs are suspended without the financial recourse sending the money back, there is a genuine challenge with that, and so we need to get an understanding of that. So there is a financial accountability process that must be put on the table. There is furthermore the issue of where there are acts of corruption or defeating the ends of justice that must then be put on the table. And then thirdly, in essence, in this instance, as I did highlight the fact that if mafias are running the country, there's something as South Africans we need to ask ourselves ethically, whether we should allow leaders who are willing to act in a manner that puts South Africans at risk. 64 South Africans are being murdered every single day. If political leaders have been killed in the midst of that, then surely the political leadership must take culpability to that. I want to endorse what Mr. Swana is saying in this idea, that if the ANC is in and of itself compromised in that, the ethical question to ask is, are they themselves fit to see through the process? So the parliamentary inquiry is going to be an act of transparency. The public protector's report is going to be key. And that is why I keep asking for the SIU. For the SIU must come to the Committee of Justice in Parliament to be able to respond to this issue.
Well, Dereleen, you've heard what Mr. Maimane has said, and I wonder, obviously, as we await, the verification of the claims, but also not taking away from the work that is being done by, good, upstanding SAPS members as well. I wonder if we could, look at what this scandal means in terms of the cabinet as well. Should a reshuffle be happening to instill confidence as ActionSA? What are some of those expectations ahead as a political party as you await the address by the president as well?
I don't think a reshuffle is going to be pleasing to South Africans. I don't think we often see the outcome of such cases. Either it's a reshuffle, someone gets promoted, they get redeployed, or they get transferred. I think South Africans are tired of seeing that. I think South Africans are really tired of hearing that task teams will be put together. They are tired of hearing that a special investigation unit will be assigned to this matter. I think what we want to see from the president, we really want to see the president put South African citizens first for once in his term. And by that we mean we want to see an immediate suspension. The fact that all of these big wigs are still operating in their positions, that is a grave concern to us, because that obviously means that there's a lot of conniving and cover-ups happening as we speak. Why haven't they been suspended? In terms of SAPS, if you look at SAPS, if you look at just 2 weeks ago, where 7 crime intelligence members were arrested, it just absolutely blows my mind to think that they were allowed back into their office. The very people that were arrested were actually left to assign someone else in their position. How does that work? So as I'm sitting here and as ActionSA, we are calling for a complete overhaul of SAPS based on allegations made over the past 30 years, which mentions bigwigs such as Becky Cele. This isn't a thing of today. This is not news to South Africans. And we require and we need action, a firm stance from President Cyril Ramaphosa.
Well, the nation waits with bated breath there. I believe we've got some citizens calling in. Bobby, from the KwaZulu-Natal, I believe you're on the line. If you can hear us, let's hear your question. Who would you also like to pose the question to? I believe we've got some citizens calling in. Apologies for that echo there. Bobby, your radio, your TV is on. Perhaps you could just turn it on mute. That's causing that echo there. We are, limited with time. Let's hear your thoughts. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Bobby, we can hear you loud and clear. Please pose your question.
Well, look, it's not a question. It's just a comment I want to make.
Okay.
That I think Cyril Ramaphosa shouldn't even speak to tonight on the radio, on TV, because he's done nothing, absolutely nothing zilch, as far as the Zondo Commission report was published. And also, he's got people in Parliament at the moment that he's appointed that have been fingered in the Commission and nothing's been done. And, of course, the Pala is still hanging over his head. So I think we need a complete outside investigation, not government-appointed officials at all. And I think this country needs to be sorted out immediately. Otherwise, get Interpol or an international investigation authority to handle this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for weighing in. Karabo, how would you like to respond in relation to what Bobby's echoed, the criticisms about the snail pace that the president's obviously, used in the dealing with the matter, but also just the indecision that comes. I mean, we know his calendar. He was in Brazil, then he rushed back. There was the former deputy president. His funeral also happened yesterday. So it's not that his calendar hasn't been busy, but the magnitude of what's unfolding, the factionalism as well. But just in regards to the rule of law in South Africa and what citizens want to know. Talk to us about how you're weighing in on the pace at which all of this is unfolding.
Look, the president's calendar is always going to be full. The question is what is on his priority list. And that's what the people of this country have been questioning. So you don't need to go to bury a former deputy president and deem that as something that is more important than an alive minister that is a threat perceivably to the safety of the people of this country. You do not deem a funeral more important than drug busts, than murder resolution, than essentially the safety of the people of this country and their reliance on an effectively functioning SABC and the people of this country's faith in their cabinet. Something that is something of that important should be something that should be at the number one hit list of the president's priority list. But the bottom line is the Democratic Alliance has opened a case against Ndata Msenzo, as we've done with Nobuhle Ngabane, as we've done with Mmusi Maimane, and we believe that the law must take its course. But a president who's actually more concerned about the ethical leadership of his cabinet would have actually laid those charges himself. It wouldn't have been up to the Democratic Alliance to go lay those charges. If indeed what the president has been talking about all along, as far as making sure that he rids his government of corruption and maladministration, as far as making sure that he has an ethical state, as far as making sure that he is on a renewal project, as he would term it, for the ANC, if indeed he meant all of these things, one, we would have heard him sooner. Two, we would have seen him call for more action, stringent action, as part of which would be the laying of criminal charges against his own cabinet, and part of it being making sure that they're not even there to begin with. So part of what we are looking forward here as the Democratic Alliance with the president's address tonight is him being able to show the people of this republic that what he's been saying all along is not just a matter of a talk show, but that he actually means it. We want action, and action says we do not want compromised ministers within the cabinet. This is not just the Democratic Alliance saying it, that is the people of this country. Our voter turnout itself is an indication of the trust deficit that exists between the people of this country and their politicians, their representatives in parliament and in cabinet. And part of the president's responsibility is to make sure that he builds that trust between himself, his cabinet, and the people. That trust starts with making sure that he detoxes his cabinet from political appointees that do not serve the best interests of South Africans.
Well, Namala, you've heard the possibilities, the suggestions, the criticisms as well. But if we're looking, in reality, practically, what some of these, look like, what is the steps that should be taken given the severity of what's coming to the fore, but also just to restore public trust on the back of what's transpired this week and for more long-term solutions? Can you walk us through what's needed in relation to the minister, in relation to, SABC at large, in relation to the president as well?
So, Lisa, of course, I think procedurally, we've got to make sure that we do what is procedurally correct. And the rule of law is very clear in terms of the procedures that we must undertake, whether it's coming from SABC, the minister, Minister Mkunu's office, or the president's office itself. So procedurally, it cannot be compromised, because I think we've seen by and large, and we've heard this over the last week as well, that many of our issues, massive issues in the countries, are not successfully prosecuted based on a procedural irregularity. So for me, there cannot be any compromises. And of course, the team that we put together, whether it's from the judiciary, from SABC themselves, etc., has to be completely objective. And I think what we could draw into this mix is objectivity from the public as well. I mean, one of the thoughts that I had previously around this issue and who should actually be investigating, etc., is to use the model of the jury. The model of the jury is a tried and tested model where we ensure that every person who's part of a jury, and of course it's the American system, is completely objective. The time that they spend during a trial ensures that there's no interference from any outsider, etc. And of course, a very close watch is kept on them. So I think that kind of model would really do us well and serve us well, especially in this instance. So that for me would be an important manner in which we try to address this issue. Objectivity, transparency, procedure.
All right, to all our panelists this afternoon, thank you for weighing in. Obviously, we know that the fight against corruption doesn't just end with these headlines. Follow through and implementation is what's needed, and obviously just, those in power being held accountable like the rest of us. The country is waiting with bated breath as we edge closer to 7 p.m. for the address by the president. Thank you to all of you for joining us. Mmusi Maimane from BOSA, Karabo Khakhau representing the DA, Dereleen James, ActionSA, and of course our political analyst Sandile Swana and UKZN criminologist Namala Gopal, all weighing in, providing some different vantage points ahead of that address.